If Apple really does this with the iPhone 17e, a lot of people are going to look at those $1,000 flagships and say, why would I pay more? Because according to new leaks, this budget iPhone might not be budget at all in the way we're used to. It might be the first time Apple gives you a modern design, a flagship-level chip, and a seriously upgraded camera without the premium-level price tag. So in this video, let's break down exactly what the leaks are saying about the iPhone 17e, why it could completely change the entry-level iPhone, and, most importantly, whether it might actually be the smarter buy than the expensive Pro models for most people. Stick around to the end, because I'll give you a simple way to decide: 17e or flagship. First, let's be clear, none of this is officially confirmed by Apple. These are leaks and early reports. Things can change, but when multiple sources start repeating the same details, patterns usually form, and that's what's happening here. For years, Apple's affordable iPhones have felt like hand-me-downs. Old design, old notch, older chips, basic cameras. Good phones, but you could always tell exactly where Apple cut corners. The iPhone 17e sounds different. The biggest shock is performance. Multiple leaks suggest Apple is planning to use the same generation A19 chip that powers the main iPhone 17 lineup. Maybe slightly scaled down, maybe clocked a little lower, but still the same core architecture. If that's true, that's huge. Because in real life, that means this: opening apps feels instant, scrolling through your home screen and social feeds feels buttery. Games run smoothly, and the phone doesn't start to feel old and sluggish after a year or two. Think about how long people hold onto their phones now: 3, 4, even 5 years. If the 17e ships with an A19 series chip, it's not just fast on day one. It's the kind of phone that still feels snappy 2 or 3 years down the road. That matters more than any flashy feature you'll use twice and forget about. And yes, there might be tiny differences between the chip in the 17e and the one in the highest-end Pro model. Maybe slightly lower graphics performance, maybe a bit less headroom for Pro video features. But if you're not editing 4K cinematic footage every day, you probably won't notice. What you will notice is that it just works consistently. Now, performance is one thing, but the place where budget iPhones usually scream budget is the design. And this is where Apple finally seems ready to move on. According to the leaks, the iPhone 17e is expected to ditch the old notch and move to the dynamic island. That alone changes how this phone feels. The notch always looked like a leftover from another era, especially after Apple moved their premium models to the dynamic island. Putting the island on the 17e instantly makes the phone feel more modern, more current, and more in line with Apple's latest design language. And when you combine that with a 6.1-inch OLED display, now we're talking about a phone that looks and feels premium the moment you turn it on. OLED isn't some minor upgrade. It means deep, inky blacks instead of washed-out grays. It means colors that pop without looking cartoonish. It means higher contrast when you're watching movies, more punch when you're gaming, and a generally richer experience whether you're scrolling TikTok, Instagram, or just reading at night. If you've been using an older iPhone with an LCD screen, this alone will feel like getting a whole new level of device. Now, I want you to imagine this. You're holding what's technically the entry-level iPhone, and instead of looking like the cheap one in the lineup, it looks almost just like the newer flagships from the front. Smaller bezels, dynamic island, OLED panel. That psychological gap between cheap iPhone and real iPhone suddenly gets a lot smaller. But the part that really caught my attention, and probably will matter most to a lot of people, is the camera system, especially the front camera. Leaks are pointing to an 18-megapixel selfie camera on the iPhone 17e. That's a massive jump when you remember Apple sat at 12 megapixels on the front camera for years. And yes, megapixels aren't everything, but they do matter when they're paired with good processing. Higher resolution means more detail in your selfies, more flexibility when you crop, and cleaner images in good light. But the leaks go further. An 18-megapixel sensor that's designed to be square and capable of landscape-style selfies. That could mean much better group selfies, cleaner framing, and a more natural-feeling front camera experience when you're shooting horizontally, whether for vlogs, reels, shorts, or travel videos. Low-light performance should also benefit. More resolution plus newer image processing usually means better ability to combine multiple frames, clean up noise, and pull in detail from darker environments. So those restaurant, party, and nighttime city selfies, they could finally look less like smudged paintings and more like real photos. And don't forget video calls. FaceTime, Zoom, Teams. If the front camera improves, everything on the other side of that lens looks sharper and more professional. For content creators, students, remote workers, or anyone who lives on video calls, this might be the first affordable iPhone that actually takes the front camera seriously. On the back, the rumor is that Apple will stick with a single 48-megapixel wide camera. Not a triple lens monster, no separate telephoto, no dedicated ultra-wide. And at first glance, that sounds like a downgrade compared to mid-range Android phones that advertise 3 or 4 cameras on the back. But let's be real. Most of those extra lenses on budget phones are there for the spec sheet, not for real-world use. 2-megapixel macro lenses, low-quality depth sensors. They're technically cameras, but you rarely get photos you actually want to post. Apple's approach is different. One genuinely good sensor, plus strong image processing and smart software. With a 48-megapixel main sensor, you get sharp detail in good light, pixel binning for cleaner low-light shots, and the ability to crop in digitally without your images falling apart instantly. For everyday life, travel, friends, pets, food, social media, that one good camera, combined with Apple's processing, is often more useful than 3 mediocre ones. So no, the iPhone 17, probably won't be the phone for hardcore camera nerds who want real optical zoom and the absolute best night mode in the world. But for the other 95% of people who just want their photos and videos to look reliably good without thinking about it, this setup could be more than enough. Now let's talk about the part that makes all of this really interesting: price. Current leaks suggest the iPhone 17 could land somewhere in the $599 to $649 range in the US. That's not cheap in an absolute sense. It's still real money. But put it next to the $999, $1,199, and even higher price tags of modern flagships, and it suddenly looks a lot more reasonable, especially if you're getting a modern dynamic island design, a 6.1-inch OLED display, an A19 generation chip, an 18-megapixel front camera, a 48-megapixel rear camera. At that price, if those leaks are accurate, the 17 starts to look like Apple's new sweet spot. The phone for people who want something new, fast, and future-proof, without feeling like they just bought a laptop in phone form. And remember, Apple's strength isn't just the hardware. It's software support. A phone launching with an A19 class chip should be set up for years of iOS updates. You're not just buying a phone for this year. You're buying a phone that should keep getting security patches, new features, and performance optimizations for a long time. That long-term support is a big part of the value equation. So who is the iPhone 17 really for? If you love having absolutely every premium feature, 120Hz display, the best zoom camera, the most advanced materials, all the pro video tricks, then no, this probably isn't meant to replace a Pro Max for you. But if you want your phone to stay fast for years, care more about a good screen and strong cameras than about having every possible lens, like the new design language, but don't want to spend close to $1,000, or you're upgrading from an older iPhone with a notch and LCD, then the 17 might quietly be the most sensible iPhone in the lineup. Think about it this way. Would you rather have a slightly older high-end iPhone that might lose software support sooner, or a brand new, mid-priced iPhone with a current generation chip, modern design, and fresh battery that's just starting its support cycle? For a lot of people, that second option makes way more sense. So here's the real question I want you to think about. If Apple actually RS this combination, a modern dynamic island design, a 19-level performance, a much better 18-megapixel front camera, a solid 48-megapixel rear camera, OLED display, and a price around $599 to $649, would you seriously consider the iPhone 17 over the more expensive flagship models? What matters more to you? absolute top-tier features, or the best overall value? Would you take the 17E and save a few $100s, or still go straight for the Pro because you want things like the best zoom, the highest refresh rate, and all the little extras? Let me know what you pick and why. Are you team value or team no compromises? Because if these leaks are even mostly accurate, the iPhone 17E might quietly become the default iPhone for a lot of people. The one that doesn't feel cheap, doesn't feel outdated, and doesn't feel like a compromise, even though it costs far less than the flagships. And if that happens, this entry-level iPhone might end up being the most important iPhone Apple releases in the entire 17 lineup.